That dog rode the same subway line every day. He looked like an experienced commuter, with those attentive eyes that scanned the faces of the passengers, one by one. But what was he looking for? Why did he seem so determined? It was an unanswered question that intrigued anyone who noticed him. Before we discover together the mystery behind this incredible story, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss other exciting stories that touch your heart. Now let's take a few steps back to understand better. Kadir was a middle-aged man with a regular job and a life marked by routine. He lived in Milan, a city where crowds and noise were a constant. Every morning, he started the engine of his old car and headed to work, avoiding the busy streets like an expert navigator. But one day, his car betrayed him and ended up in the workshop. He had no choice but to descend into the crowded bowels of the city's subway. On his first morning on the subway, Kadir felt suffocated by the crowd. He was trying to make room for himself when he noticed something unusual. A dog sitting on the platform, watching the people with an almost human look. He didn't seem disoriented or intimidated. On the contrary, it was as if he knew exactly where he was and what he was doing. Around his neck, a tag with a name, Sarek. When the train arrived, Sarek stood up and jumped aboard confidently, blending in with the commuters as if he were one of them. Kadir, curious, followed him. The dog wasn't just traveling. He seemed to be searching for someone among the passengers. He was looking at every face with a strange intensity, as if hoping to recognize someone in the anonymous crowd. Every day, Kadir found Sarek at the same station, at the same time. He began to follow him more carefully, noticing how the dog seemed to know every stop and every corner of that underground labyrinth by heart. The more he watched him, the more the mystery grew in his mind. What story was hidden behind those attentive eyes? Why did he keep returning there day after day? The mystery became something of an obsession for Kadir. One morning, he decided to act. He waited for Sarek to stop for a snack offered by a passerby. He took advantage of that moment and delicately attached a small tracking device to the dog's collar. "Maybe this will give us some answers," he murmured, watching Sarek walk away. The wait for the results of the tracker was unbearable. Kadir checked the data several times a day. Finally, something surprising emerged. Sarek traveled 30 kilometers every day, changing lines several times. Yet he always returned to the starting point, never stopping in a specific place. What was the reason for this endless journey? At this point, if you're enjoying the video, leave a precious like and subscribe to the channel for more amazing stories. The questions multiplied. Kadir wondered if Sarek was looking for a lost family, perhaps abandoned by someone on that platform. Maybe every day he hoped to see the faces of his masters among the passengers. Was this his routine? Searching among the strangers, hoping to find the one who had left him there? Not wanting to leave any stone unturned, Kadir contacted an animal shelter. He told them Sarek's story and asked if anyone knew the dog or had heard of a traveling dog. The shelter volunteers were surprised and intrigued. No one had ever seen anything like it. They offered to take Sarek in and find him a home, but Kadir hesitated. "No," she said firmly, "we have to let him go. There's something he's looking for, something only he can find." The volunteers agreed and decided to follow Sarek's movements more carefully. Every day, he continued his journey, hoping, searching. His story spread among the commuters, and soon Sarek became a small legend of the subway. People began to bring him food, to pet him, and the dog accepted everything with grace and dignity. Kadir kept wondering if there was something more behind Sarek's behavior. What if the dog wasn't looking for a specific person, but for the memory of a happy time? What if it was the emotional connection, the memory of a past life, that drove him on this daily pilgrimage? It was a question that haunted him every night. Time passed, and as the mystery persisted, Sarek became even more famous. People photographed him. Local media reported his story. One day, Kadir decided not to leave Sarek alone on his travels anymore. Maybe he's found a new home, he thought. A home made of roads, ferries, and kind faces. From then on, Sarek was no longer limited to the subway. It was as if he had found a new freedom, a new mission. Kadir watched this new evolution with admiration. He felt that the dog had taught him something profound. Sometimes, he thought, it's not the destination that matters, but the journey itself and the connections we make along the way. Sarek's story had become his story too, a lesson in resilience and hope. One evening, while he was watching Sarek, Kadir noticed that the dog seemed more agitated than usual. His eyes moved nervously from side to side, as if he was waiting for something with growing anxiety. For the first time, Kadir realized that, despite everything, Sarek was not truly free. He was still a prisoner of a hope that he did not want to abandon. At a stop that wasn't part of Sarek's usual route, the dog stopped dead, ears pricked, eyes fixed on the exit. An old woman in a red coat, leaning on a cane, approached the platform. Kadir stood still, watching with bated breath. The woman looked in the direction of the dog, and for a moment, it seemed as if time stood still. Sarek's eyes lit up, and his body vibrated with emotion. It was clear that the old woman was what the dog had been searching for all this time. The woman knelt down slowly with uncertain movements and called the dog in a soft, time-broken voice. "Sarek?" Tears began to roll down her cheeks. Kadir understood immediately. This was the person Sarek was looking for. This was his mistress. With a yelp of joy, Sarek ran toward her, leaping at her with uncontrollable enthusiasm. She hugged him tightly, burying her face in his fur, and Kadir could hear her crying mingling with the whisper of the wind. They embraced like two souls, finally reunited after years of separation. After calming down a bit, the woman turned to Kadir. "I've been looking for him for so long," she said, her voice shaking. "He disappeared that day, and I thought I'd never see him again. I came here every week hoping, praying." Kadir felt a lump in his throat. Now, it all made sense. Sarek had never really been abandoned. In fact, he had been looking for a way to reunite with the person he loved most in the world, his only family. His daily travels were not just a habit, but a mission of hope that had finally come true. That evening, Kadir walked with the woman and her faithful dog through the streets of Istanbul, accompanying them home. He felt a warmth in his heart, a sense of peace that he had never felt before. He had witnessed a miracle, born from the simple determination of a dog who had never stopped believing. In the days that followed, Sarek was no longer seen on the subway. His daily adventure was over, But his story, told by Kadir, continued to spread throughout Istanbul. Sarık had become a symbol of hope for all those who had lost someone or something and still did not stop searching. And you, what would you do if you were desperately looking for someone you loved? Would you let hope guide you like Sarık did?